Hi, my name is Officer Tim Tuttle, and I'm here today to talk to you about a big misunderstanding in the transportation industry.
Thanks for calling Fister Recruiting.
Hi, I ran into one of your drivers and I was really interested in figuring out more about your company.
Oh, how'd you hear about us?
I just told you I talked to one of your drivers.
Hey guys, it's me, Tim Tuttle, and I'd always heard that the grass is greener on the other side, and turns out the grass is way greener, but it sure smells different. That's because they use grade A manure. That means poop.
You would think it would be so simple to take something from A to B. They look at truckers and they think easy. You get behind the wheel, you drive.
We are honored as a company today to be able to participate and support REEs across America, to remember, honor, teach, and Bennett's core patriotism value, our love of country, our love of flag, and our men and women of our armed services who have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. We're here to raise awareness in our community and state that we're here to raise money to be able to lay 15,000 wreaths at the tombstone at Andersonville National Cemetery to honor the fallen.
All right, and we're back. Drive Safe Dave here on BCB Live. We've got Paul Gibson, co-host of Cents Per Mile and co-host of Bright Lights Media. That was a small yet compacted, somewhat hodgepodge put together version of some of the things that you do, right, Paul?
Yep. That's what it was.
Hey, so look, let's just talk a little bit about what Bright Lights Media is over there at KC. Tell me what it is.
Basically, I make videos for trucking companies and then additional proactive content for drivers. My whole thing was I was a recruiting and marketing manager for 5 years, and we started doing some campaigns. We got into video, and the videos we were making were a little bit more edgy, a little bit more self-aware as far as the situational part of the industry goes. They started doing really good. People were like, hey, you should make our videos. I was like, no, these people will fire me. And then more people were like, hey, you should make our videos. And then I was like, oh, okay. And so I talked to my wife, bet my mortgage on it, and here I am 5 years later.
Do you and basically you are out doing it just in the trucking industry alone, or are you doing other things? Because most of what you talked about there was pretty much primarily trucking.
Yeah, it's 100% trucking. I don't do weddings or product videos and stuff like that. It's just
do weddings. That's cool. What if it's a truck driver wedding? No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be a different story. I'd probably do it.
We saw up there on there, and you develop characters. You develop some of the things that you do to try to get your point across. What was Tim Tuttle? Officer Tim Tuttle. What character is that?
Well, so Officer Tim Tuttle was just a variation of Tim Tuttle. So the company that I used to work for when I was a recruiter and then recruiting and marketing manager was Riverside Transport. And basically, a lot of stuff like that, a lot of advertising goes better if you create a character, because a character helps you tell the story essentially. And that's really what marketing should be, is really a lot of it is storytelling, or at least branding is. And so kind of created it out of sort of a sketchy situation. So we were trying to figure out what some competitors were doing. So I would call around and pretend to be an owner operator to find out what other companies were offering, and I made up the name Tim Tuttle, which I then went ahead and used for the character when that came up later. But yeah, so I mean, ultimately that's really what that was. But the whole idea of those commercials was to be funny, and then present the information in a way where it's self-aware. Like, so for instance, like the one where I'm holding the bag of manure, where I'm like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side, but that's because they use manure. So it's taking a lot of tropes that you hear in trucking and pointing out the parts of them that are terrible that the company can't help fix. And then talking about how, hey, this is a rough job, but these are the things we can help with. And it resonated really well. And he was just a reoccurring character that kind of turned into a brand. And it was cool for me because it's like, you can't really fire me because I'm the company mascot. So
Yeah. kind of the character. I know all too well what it means to be kind of like the company mascot. And you can't shoo away from the door because you keep putting food out front, right? I mean, As long as you keep putting food outside, I'm still gonna, like a big stray, I'm still gonna keep coming around. Let me ask you a quick question, Paul. When you got into this, and you started to get to these, tell me a little bit about your hurdles that you had to get over really quick. I mean, just kind of tell me what it is that you had to get past. Was it yourself? Was it the equipment? Was it technology? Or what was it? Some of the expertise? Tell me what some of the genuine hurdles you had to get to.
I mean, really, the only hurdle for me was I had to learn how to film because I didn't know how to do it. So that was what happened was with those RTI commercials. I didn't actually film them, but I did star in them. I wrote them. I produced them. Did all the behind the scenes work. Did the directing, but hired an actual film crew to make it. And then I started to see how much money we were paying that film crew, and then I was like, I could do this. And that's how I started making more videos on my own. They let me kind of learn, start making stuff for social media. Then it turns out I had an eye for it, got kind of good at it. That's when people started hitting me up, and that's kind of how Bright Lights Media came to be.
Let me ask you a quick question. When did you start to realize that that this was going to be a venture? I mean, you're going to make it. I mean, you were going to make it, right? I mean, when did you realize that it wasn't? There was no turning back, and this was going to make it. You were going to figure it out.
Probably when I quit my job. I mean, realistically, I was worried at first for probably about the first year or so, just because it was coming. Video was inevitable because trucking, I'm convinced, is 5 years almost to the day behind everything when it comes to marketing and advertising. And so I knew I was a little bit ahead of the curve, and that was definitely showing in like the first year. But more and more content popped up video-wise, the busier I got. At about year 2 is when it really started to take off. And there was one point, like, I think there was a few months where I was home for like 3 days out of the month because I was traveling the rest of it, going around to trucking companies and making videos. And then I was like, oh, this is pretty much what I do now.
Let's do CDL Live. What was this taking on a big client like that, and how did you help the company with videography?
So CDL Life was actually the first company, was finally the company that made me go, all right, I'm gonna go do this. They were my first outside client, and they were my biggest client, still are to this day. And I actually, now we're all under the umbrella of the same parent company. But yeah, no, it was amazing. And the fun thing with CDL Life is I'm not necessarily making like recruiting commercials and stuff like that, which are fine. But like I went over the road with an owner operator for 2 days in April of 2020 to see what things were like actually out on the road. And I got to see those drivers standing in the drive-through because they couldn't take their trucks through or go inside. Different things like that. One time I locked myself, which I'm sure we'll probably talk about tomorrow, but I locked myself with my business partner at the time in a truck in 95-degree weather with the windows up without running it or running the APU to protest idling laws. And so you get to do like a lot of cool stuff like that not only speaks to the driver, but actually can speak to other people that the driver can show and say, here, this is a problem.
Did you have and I hear some of the self-awareness things and stuff like that. Here at BCB Live, we focus on safety. How often do you get involved in promoting and generating safety videos to help coincide with what's going on and helping to change the industry today? Because I'll tell you, the reason I ask that is we get so much bombardment by commercials and negativity in the industry, be it attorneys for claims and stuff like that. How are you helping to promote safety?
That's kind of a can of worms with me. So as far as me personally goes, I don't know that I'm necessarily the safest person. But as far as promoting safety, if someone hired me to make a safety video, I could totally do it. I think there's a lot of things that are like, I guess basically trucking is painted in terrible light. You have like nuclear verdicts. The driver is always assumed to be wrong and guilty until proven innocent in any sort of traffic situation. Could you imagine if, it happens sometimes, but if like officers just started randomly pulling over cars to make sure like everything on their car was functional? That's kind of ridiculous. So I think we also, as an industry, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be safe. I'm saying that I think that we put so much emphasis on it because we allow those things to happen. The industry placates to those situations, but we don't do anything really, I feel like, to push back. Because trucking is safer than I think the motoring public thinks that it is. But also, a lot of the times when trucking isn't safe, it has a lot more to do with the motoring public than it does with that professional driver going down the road.
Oh, yeah, you're preaching. You're basically turned around and preached to the choir over here when it comes to vehicle safety and stuff like that, Paul, in regards to that. No, look, I get a big kick out of some of the stuff you're doing. I was watching. Not only it looks like you were having fun, but you were also making a emotional video, a sentimental video, a video with cause. How do you differentiate those two when you sit down and get great ideas about what you're fixing to do?
Well, I think it ultimately comes down to, like I was talking about earlier with storytelling. Not every video is going to have a story. Some of them are informational, that kind of thing. But I think a lot of it boils down to what is the story, what is the goal of the video, and then just being aware. So it was a while ago, but like in that compilation was the Wreaths Across America video.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would have missed the point, and a lot more people would have been even angry if I had tried to make that a funny video. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I get that.
And then the same thing with some of the funny videos. Like, you can address those issues in a serious way, but it's a lot harder to talk to people about negative things or to basically show people like the error of their ways in a serious way, because a lot of people get turned off on that because a lot of people don't think their own stuff stinks. But when you make a joke out of it, they listen.
Yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. Not very many people of us will, in a crowded room, not very many people will raise their hand and say they're bad drivers.
Right.
Everybody thinks they're ultimately a good driver. And if we have so many great drivers out there on the road, why do we have so many accidents? It's not just one guy running around bumping into people. It's a whole bunch of different people. Look, you also work with your co-host over there, Charles, at Cents Per Mile, correct?
Yep.
So tell me about that venture as well.
Well, so me and Charles both have some pretty interesting takes on a lot of things. Me having spent a lot of time with drivers, and I interview drivers essentially for a living. Charles having been a driver, been a recruiter, etc. Now running a third-party recruiting company, been worked on like in operations. So we got a lot of a pretty big grasp on a lot of different aspects of things, and we just realized like there weren't a whole lot of voices out there that were trying to speak to the industry for the driver.
What's the biggest reward you're getting from that cents per mile? What's the biggest reward are you getting for personally?
Well, I mean, ultimately, what I said at the very beginning, if I could get one company to change their mind about the way they do things to make one driver's life better, I'd call it mission accomplished. And I've gotten some pretty cool emails about people like actually talking to me about like different things they're doing now because of things that they heard on there, or like things that have made them think about, or they'll say, hey, I was listening to something you said, it made a lot of sense. What do you think about this idea? And the fact that it's actually starting conversations, helping people break away from it's always been like this, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type mentality. I think that's really what we need, because a lot of people are talking about like, oh, we need to get younger people into trucks. It's like, well, I mean, a lot of people call me what you will, but I'm a millennial, and we don't want to work or whatever. But you can't get millennials in trucks. I don't know how you're going to get Gen Z in trucks.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the only way you're going to do that is to make the job appealing again. Because trucking is not what it used to be. Even your, like upper 40s, 50s crowd, which makes the average age for a driver, they'll even agree it's not what it used to be. And it's not really, when you can make the same amount of money or even a couple $1,000s less working from home, why would you go drive a truck?
Yeah, it has changed dramatically over the years. I know firsthand, having been a truck driver for many, many years and an owner-operator, I can tell you that in and of itself has changed. There's been it's been a huge paradigm shift in the way not only that we look at truck drivers, but also how they look at themselves and also where they see their future in the industry. I mean, it is crazy in and of itself. Does Cents Per Mile and Bright Lights Media, I know do they feed off one another in both ideas and content?
Not necessarily. So Bright Lights Media is just what I go under whenever I go out and make videos. That's just that is completely separate from Cents Per Mile. Cents Per Mile is just pretty much us talking about issues like that. So the content doesn't really go back and forth. I guess technically with Cents Per Mile, between me and my producer Josh, me being a part of that process, I guess it kind of crosses over in that way. But realistically, they're two pretty separate ventures.
Give me some ideas on some of your new videos you're gonna be doing and what you want to be doing here within the next year or two.
Well, I've got and I think I'm on tomorrow. We're talking about it, but I've got a mini documentary dropping tomorrow, actually, on the CDL Life YouTube, where I follow hours of service as an office employee and live in a storage closet for 2 hours. My goal is to show how tight hours of service is, but then it kind of spirals into a slightly darker narrative and realizing some things and putting some pieces together. So that's cool. And then other than that, I think a lot of it actually really kind of comes as it comes. It's not really planned. It's just like, hey, this would be a good idea.
So we're looking forward to, I'll tell you what, Josh, Paul, we're looking forward to really waiting for the movie. Because obviously we're headed toward, do you want to do a movie one day about truckers?
Oh my gosh. I've actually talked to a couple people about it. I would love nothing more, because I love making documentaries. Those are my favorite kinds of things to make. Less agenda and more just like telling a pure story, not acting, just real. I would love, I've thought about trying to find ways to get sponsors and stuff like that, but to actually go around the country and like find some owner operators or even drivers, who have been around for 30, 40 years and actually get all of their stories and kind of compile them to show the change of the industry over like the last 40 years. That would be a dream. It would probably cost a few $10,000. If anyone listening wants to bankroll that, hit me up.
Well, you know what? You put me in for $10, and I will go ahead and throw that in. We'll just get the conglomerate together, and we'll just get a whole bunch of people to do that together. I'm telling you what, Paul. It's really interesting what you're doing. Some of your videos speak for themselves. They don't really need any of us to tell you. You want to get to how do they get a hold of you, Paul? If they want you to come in, help them with a video, help them with education, help them with any way they can, how do they get out and reach out to you?
Honestly, I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. It's just Paul Gibson. And then Paul at brightlightsmediakc.com is my email. Those are honestly the two best ways to get a hold of me.
All right, and I do appreciate it. We will talk. We're going to be talking to you tomorrow as well. But before you get out of here today and you're by yourself, I always ask our guests if they would do one thing. Would you please state your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation?
I'm Paul Gibson for Bright Lights Media, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Hey, thanks again, Paul. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you on the show, and we'll have the panel together to get that going as well. How's that?
All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon.
All right, see you soon. All right, bye.